Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So it seems like it's going to be a busy day for the Pursuit of Truth today. This is the third one I'm going to release today because this warrants being on here. It's just come on now, and it's about missing migrant children. And I know, there's lots of children that go missing every single year. I know truthers and conspiratorial theorists, I don't like using that term because it's loaded, but let's just use that for parlance, talk about missing children and etc., the elite and whatever happens and why this happens. I'm not trying to tie links to that. This case has been suggesting that these children are working for illegal means, gangs, I guess, selling drugs or I don't know what else, if it is sex slaves and things like that. I don't know, they don't really go into the detail. I suspect the media don't have, or this politician that's talking from Brighton and Hove don't have any actual information of it, because as they're missing, they probably can't actually pinpoint exactly where they are and what's happened to them, but I just suspect they're guessing what's going on. Unless they found them and then they realised this is what actually they were being asked to do. But it is just another one of these cases of, the system failing, that's why I'm putting it here, and also the fact that, how as a society we're not doing enough for each other. When these things are happening to children, that we're definitely not doing enough for each other. All the children that go missing and how this happens in a technological, advanced, civilized place that we say we're from, and more cause for us to do something rather than just putting Netflix on and forgetting about it, or making ourselves laugh and thinking that these things don't exist. Well, unless we all solve this problem, those in charge, as you can see, will never do, because as this person from Brighton Hove pointed out to the council and to the people in charge of those areas, this was going to happen, and they just met it with disdain and sort of, no, that won't happen. And yet here it is. This often happens. We see it ourselves in government, we see it in our workplaces and everywhere, where whistleblowers and people who make mention of things and then nothing ever gets done, because people generally just don't want to do anything. They just want to keep the status quo and not rock the boat and keep everything exactly the same way it is, because they're all right, Jack, and they maybe don't care about the suffering that's going on for humanity every single day. Anyway, here's this.
Invest in your future. Sky News.
Yeah. We don't
Some claims were being investigated, according to an investigation by the Observer newspaper. A whistleblower has spoken to the paper about the disappearance of the children, saying that the Home Office ignored repeated warnings that they would be trafficked by organised crime gangs. Well, I'm joined now by Labour councillor Bella Sankey, who represents Wishward at Brighton and Hove City Council. And Bella Sankey, just tell us a little bit about what we know about who these children are, what ages are they, and where they've come from.
Well, at the moment we have very little information, because when we've asked questions of the Green administration here in Brighton and Hove, we haven't had much transparency. We know that the children that have gone missing are all under 18. We know that they've come from various countries. And we know that, as with asylum-seeking children and indeed any people seeking asylum, they will have suffered already extreme trauma, sometimes violence, and sometimes some of the most unthinkable things. So the fact that so many have now gone missing is absolutely horrific.
And what is the theory about where they are going and where they're ending up?
So firstly, huge credit to this very brave whistleblower that has come forward to shine a light on what is going on. And in the Observer piece that was published yesterday, they go into some detail about how children are being effectively kidnapped from the street outside of this hotel in Hove. And there is evidence that they are being trafficked all around the country, because there have been some arrests by police already, but we know that there are still so many children that are missing. So the fear is, and now we know to be the case, that serious organised crime is targeting this hotel and is trafficking these children into the criminal underworld. Now, none of this is a surprise. In fact, the Labour Party warned that this would happen when these hotels were created by the Conservative government back in 2001. We also warned the Green administration in Brighton and Hove that serious organised crime would target these children. However, this was met with blank denial, refusal to engage, and now look at what's happened and what we now know. All of those fears have been, have come to light and have been proven.
Let's be clear, if these were British children being housed together in a hotel like this, do you think they would be being treated differently? Do you think they would have a different level of supervision, perhaps?
I think that's a really excellent question. And I think the first answer to that is that it's completely unlawful to house children in this way, whether they are British or whether they have a different nationality. So that's the first point. What the Home Office is doing here is clearly unlawful. There is no legal power to move children from one local authority area to another and to abandon them in hotels in this way. But I think the second answer to that question is, of course not. Of course, it wouldn't have been able to go on this long, this absolutely horrific and unlawful practice, if these children were British. 5 classrooms of children have gone missing from Brighton and Hove. One child is too many, but that is a huge number of children. And that's why the Labour group on Brighton and Hove City Council is calling for the resignation of the Green leader of the council and of the deputy leader of the council. You cannot preside over a child safeguarding disaster like this and not take political responsibility for what you're doing.
And in terms of these children, you're saying that this hotel is essentially a de facto children's home. We know that in the past there have been children and children's homes have been targeted by criminal gangs before. We've certainly seen young girls being targeted by unscrupulous gangs around these kind of homes. But are these particular children that are in these homes mainly young men, or is it a mixture of both young men and young women?
We believe that the children in this hotel are boys that have gone missing and that have been targeted in this way. And I think you're absolutely right to draw attention to the fact that there is so much institutional experience of this. After the horrors of grooming in Rochdale, we know that children, vulnerable children, are targeted by predators and by serious organised crime. So there is absolutely no excuse for another Rochdale, but yet that's what we're seeing unfold here. We've been working with the voluntary sector in Brighton and Hove, who have been moving heaven and earth to try and protect these children, but without the cooperation of either the Green administration or the Home Office that has placed the children in these hotels. And they have told us that they have known that criminal networks are targeting these kids. And as the whistleblower says, it's happening in broad daylight outside of the hotel. This is a child safeguarding catastrophe, but it's been going on in plain sight. And both of the institutions responsible for these children have been turning a blind eye, blaming one another, and passing the buck.
And what would you like to see happen now? I mean, you talked about the political fallout. You would like to see resignations at the council, but what do you think should happen to these hotels and the children within them?
These hotels need to be immediately shut down. They should never have been created in the first place, and it's a modern day scandal that they were. So the hotels need to be shut down with immediate effect, and the Home Office needs to get on with doing that yesterday. What also needs to happen is that children that have been put in these hotels need to be immediately placed in foster care placements around the country. We have something called the National Transfer Scheme that was set up exactly for this situation, so that when children arrive unaccompanied, without their parents and without a guardian in this country, claiming asylum, they should be immediately put into caring foster care placements. And the scheme was designed so that every local authority would play its part in protecting these children. There is no reason why that scheme should not be being made operationally effective, so that no child has to go to a hotel for any length of time whatsoever. At the moment, we know through Freedom of Information requests that children are being placed in these hotels for just over 2 weeks. It's completely unnecessary. It should never have happened. The hotels must go and children must be put immediately into foster care placements.
OK, Bella Sankey, Labour councillor for Wishford, Brighton and Hove City Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I mean, it's terrible to hear this. Imagine you're a child. You know, these are children under 18. Yeah, maybe 16 you could say they could deal with this. But imagine, you know, I have children, twins, that are 5 years old. Imagine it's a 5-year-old child of yours that's fleeing persecution. And I know there's going to be lots of people that don't want to hear this, and they're going to just say, oh, well, maybe they're from Albania, or maybe they're just, you know, doing it because they want more money, or this, that, and the other. You know, there are racial tendencies coming out. But imagine, as a parent, you're 5-year-old, you've died. Maybe you died on the boat trying to get your children to safety because of fear of persecution, because of the world that we live in, the human suffering that I keep talking about, that everyone knows takes place everywhere. We see it on TV, we see it on charity nights, we see it, we know. We're all connected now by these views that we can see the world and the suffering that's going on. Imagine you know, it's not undeniable that there are children and parents, people, human beings like you and me, who are not safe, who've had to flee, who've, you know, paid some criminal to get on a boat. Maybe not so much a criminal, maybe a saviour, who's taken them on the boat. Yeah, he's taking money. Or everyone takes money, you know, as if like somehow they're so bad. Well, yeah, everyone's so bad who takes money to help another human being. And they've got on a boat and they travel, and their parents died, and they're 5 years old, and they're put in this hotel after maybe hearing, you know, shots of fire. I know I'm, you know, building up the drama of this. And then, you know, imagine, I can't imagine my children without me and my wife, their mum, being on their own in a room full of other kids that they don't know, that maybe speak a different language, or maybe they're, I don't know, I assume maybe they house them together. Is there even an adult there looking after them? I assume there must be someone looking after them. But the question is, I can't believe that they couldn't just put them in a room, you know, into a hotel and have no one looking after them. So have they taken over the whole hotel? And then you'd expect they'd have doormen, security, stuff like that. No, they don't have that. Children are just allowed to wander outside and get kidnapped in broad daylight. So you've got to ask yourself the question, you know, why the Home Office, those people that are meant to be protecting people, the asylum scheme that I believe had its founding in this country. Why? Well, I suppose it goes back thousands of years actually to religion and etc. But the modern day version of it. But why would they then, if they're being told this is happening, and assuming there's evidence of police arresting, you know, gangs and finding these children came from there. I mean, surely they know how many people are in the hotel, and they would know that there's 5 classrooms of them gone fucking missing. And then how could they then carry on? How could they not step in? How could they not just get security for the front door if they had to put them in this place? But apparently it's illegal to do this, according to Brighton and Hove, you just heard there. So the Home Office is practicing illegal schemes, and it's just another example of the system failing. It doesn't matter who you put in the person, who is in charge of the Home Office, whether it's Priti Patel, whoever it is. The system, it breeds this. Maybe it's also the types of people that decide to take power, that they're all corrupt-minded, or they don't really have that empathy or human emotion because Oxford and Cambridge have drummed it out of them. Like I saw when I saw that, I don't know if you've ever seen the BBC's Cecil Rhodes thing, Rhodes, you know, how he seemed to be like a nice person when he was a boy, but when he went to Oxford, that's what made him into the Rhodes that everyone knows about. Making these people into heartless human beings. Well, I'm not saying, you know, obviously, I'm sure there's some good people that come out of Oxford. But it's just not working, is it? This is not just one example. There's 3 examples today. In just one day, in just one place. Cross party. So it doesn't matter if you're Labour or Tory or Green or whatever, everyone. But it's the mindset of the way we're brought into this world, because we're brought up blank and we learn the system that's around us, and then we adopt and assimilate into this system that is making us go against our own humanity. But children, come on, explain that to me. Explain that to me. Shouldn't we have lined up those people who put those children in their hospital so we can see their faces and ask them, are you parents? Would you do this to your own children? Is this how you treat your own children? Do you treat somebody else's children who don't have parents, who may have died in another country or may have died trying to get their kids here so that they didn't have to suffer? All those people that don't like the idea of asylum seekers and all that kind of stuff, how do they listen to this and not feel this? Who cares who's here, who's not here? We're all here. We're all human beings, no matter where we've been born. Every single bit of land that's on this place that we found ourselves upon is each one of ours. No one can possess it and own it and cut it up and call it whatever and say, well, you need a piece of paper because you want to go here or there. When we get like that, we've lost our humanity. But yet there'll be people who will be maybe even happy about this, who will be wanting, to tighten up the borders even more and let fellow human beings not come. What kind of a heart, what kind of a world, what kind of humanity is that make of us? Take care, take it easy. God bless and peace.